All right, ready to get into some serious political strategizing.
Oh, absolutely. Always up for that.
We've got excerpts from this Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, and let me tell you, it's a latte.
It's quite a document.
It's like the ultimate playbook for a future conservative president.
Hmm.
You know, like it's a super detailed blueprint, covers everything.
Everything. Like, what kind of stuff are we talking?
I mean, defense, education,
Yeah.
energy, even like what to do with the EPA.
EPA. Okay, that's interesting.
You got plans for it all.
What's really fascinating about this document is that it's not just some wish list.
Okay.
You know, it's not just from one person or one faction of the party. It's called Project 2025.
Project 2025. Okay.
And it's actually the Heritage Foundation's attempt to, like, bring together all the different voices in the conservative movement.
Oh.
So, you know, you've got your think tanks, you've got your former government officials, you name it. They're all coming together to, like, present this unified vision for America's 250th birthday. So it's coming out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is way more than tweaking a few policies here and there, right?
Exactly.
This is like a whole new direction they're trying to set.
A new direction, yeah. And it's really interesting to see how they're, like, drawing inspiration from the past. You know, the Heritage Foundation actually created a similar document.
All right.
Like a mandate for leadership.
Really?
For Ronald Reagan back in 1980.
Oh, wow.
And that really helped shape his presidency.
Interesting. So they're going back to their roots in a way.
Yeah, but this time they're not shying away from the culture wars either.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, they're really calling out the woke agenda, you know, and what they see is like elites being totally out of touch with everyday Americans.
Yeah, there's this one quote that really jumped out at me.
Okay.
They criticize elites who shower after work instead of before. Which,
Okay.
you know, is a little provocative. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, it really highlights their point about the perceived disconnect between the ruling class and the average person.
Right, that those in charge are so out of touch with the rest of us.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that sparking some heated debates.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But beyond the culture war stuff, there's this big emphasis on giving more power to the president. They talk about, like, using executive authority to handcuff the bureaucracy.
Handcuff the bureaucracy.
And push Congress to, like, reclaim its power from all these unelected officials, you know?
That's definitely a key theme throughout this whole document.
Okay.
It's like they think the federal bureaucracy has just gotten too large, too powerful, and way too unresponsive to what the people actually want. So they basically see it as a major obstacle to actually, like, enacting any kind of true conservative agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're not just talking about, like, reining in the bureaucracy.
Right.
They also want to defang and defund what they call woke culture warriors.
Woke culture warriors.
Who they believe have, like, infiltrated everywhere.
Everywhere.
From, like, schools to government agencies.
Wow.
It's in the document.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
It shows how serious they are about pushing back against what they see as, like, this radical left-wing agenda.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is they even get into, like, the nitty-gritty of how they would staff the White House.
The White House?
Yeah, they're, like, emphasizing the need for a really strong team of lawyers who are, like, politically aligned and senior advisors who can provide, like, broad guidance on policy issues.
Broad guidance. So they're not just focused on, like, the president, right?
No, absolutely not.
They're thinking about all the different levels of government.
Right.
From, like, the Oval Office all the way down to the agencies.
Yeah. And speaking of agencies,
the
Department of Defense section.
Yeah, that one stood out to me, too.
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's clear that national security is, like, a top priority for them.
Yeah. What are some of the, like, key things that jumped out at you from that section?
Well, first off, they're very concerned about China. About China's growing military power. And they argue that, you know, America needs to modernize and expand its own nuclear capabilities. As a deterrent to, like, potential aggression from China.
So this reflects kind of a growing fear among conservatives that China is, like, becoming America's biggest geopolitical rival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely a shift from the focus on terrorism.
Yeah.
That we've seen more recent years. And they also talk a lot about ensuring unbiased intelligence reporting.
Unbiased intelligence reporting. Okay.
Which, seems to suggest they think maybe current intelligence might be skewed by, political agendas.
So, like, maybe downplaying the threat from China, they're saying?
Potentially, yeah. That's kind of what they're hinting at.
Interesting. So they're not just focused on, like, the military hardware and stuff.
No, definitely not.
They're also concerned about the information being used to actually make strategic decisions, right?
Exactly. Okay. And one more thing.
Okay.
They call for the creation of a Space Force Academy.
A Space Force Academy, wow.
Which would be pretty unique.
Yeah, that's a bold proposal for sure. But it really highlights their focus on space as like this new frontier for national security. Yeah. So big changes in store for the military if they have their way.
For sure.
But what about domestic issues? What do they have planned for Homeland Security?
Well, their approach to Homeland Security is it's all about streamlining and refocusing.
Okay.
So they want to get ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, back to its primary mission.
Okay.
By enforcing existing immigration laws.
Okay.
And stopping the closure of all these pending cases.
So a much tougher stance on immigration enforcement.
Yeah, that's right. They see illegal immigration as a major threat.
Okay.
To national security, public safety. And and they think that the current administration has just been too lax in enforcing the law.
Okay. And I'm guessing they're not too happy with the EPA either.
You guessed it.
What's the deal there?
They argue that the EPA has just become way too focused on climate change and other issues that they think are driven by activism.
Okay.
More than sound science.
So what do they want to do about it?
Well, they propose this major shift in the EPA's priorities.
Okay.
So they want to see like a much greater emphasis on more immediate environmental problems.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Like air and water pollution, things like that, and less focus on climate change.
Climate change,
which they believe is a less pressing issue.
Okay, so big changes proposed for the EPA. What about education?
Education.
That's always a hot button issue.
Yeah, for sure. School choice. That's definitely at the top of their agenda when it comes to education. They're proposing allowing states to opt out of federal programs and give families more control over how they spend their children's education dollars.
So more vouchers in charter school?
Yeah, exactly. They believe that parents should have the power to choose the best education options for their kids, regardless of where they live or how much money they make.
And they're also taking aim at Title IX, right?
Oh, yeah. They want to reform Title IX to really focus on due process rights for anyone accused of sexual misconduct.
Okay.
And also to define sex, based on biological sex at birth, which would exclude transgender students from some protections.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a controversial proposal.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially given all the ongoing debates we have about transgender rights.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very clear indication that they're willing to wade into the culture wars and take a firm stance on these very sensitive issues.
Okay, so we've got defense, we've got Homeland Security, the EPA, education. What about energy?
Energy.
What's their vision for the Department of Energy?
Well, their energy policy is it's all about shifting away from what they see as too much government intervention in the market. And promoting American energy independence. So they want to eliminate subsidies for renewable energy sources.
Wind and solar, things like that.
Like wind and solar. Yeah, exactly. Right. And focus instead on more traditional energy sources. Like oil, gas, and coal.
So that's a big departure from, the current administration's focus on clean energy.
It is, yeah. They basically think that that the push for renewable energy has been driven more by ideology than sound economics.
Okay.
And that it's made America more reliant on foreign energy sources.
So they want to see a return to, they call it energy dominance.
Energy dominance, yeah.
With America becoming a net exporter of energy.
Exactly.
Okay, so a big shift in energy policy is on their agenda. What about agriculture? What's their vision for the USDA?
Well, they want a USDA
okay.
that respects what they call efficient production.
Efficient production, yeah.
And doesn't try to transform the food system.
Transform the food system, yeah.
So essentially they're advocating for like a more hands-off approach with less government regulation and more reliance on market forces.
Which seems to be kind of a critique.
It is.
Of the current administration's focus on sustainable agriculture and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. They think those initiatives are often driven by special interests.
Okay.
And that they can lead to higher food prices and reduced agricultural output.
So they're basically saying let farmers farm.
Pretty much, yeah.
They think that farmers know what's best for their land and their businesses.
Yeah.
And that the government should just focus on removing obstacles rather than trying to dictate how things should be done.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a pretty clear vision for agriculture. What about the Justice Department? What are they proposing there?
Well, for them, it's all about restoring what they see as the rule of law.
The rule of law.
Which they believe has been, eroded by the current administration's policies.
Okay.
So they want to see, tougher prosecution of immigration offenses.
Okay.
And a real pushback against what they call woke policies.
Woke policies.
That they think are undermining law enforcement.
Well, a more, traditional law and order approach.
Exactly. They believe that the Justice Department should be focused on enforcing the law as it's written, not trying to, implement social change through, prosecutions or legal interpretations.
Okay, so a very different philosophy from the current administration.
Yeah, very much so.
And it's evident in, their specific proposals for the Justice Department. They want to strengthen the FBI's focus on, traditional law enforcement activities, like investigating terrorism or organized crime, and, and streamline what they see as, non-essential functions.
So they want to basically take the FBI back to its roots.
Yeah, back to its roots as a, a crime-fighting organization.
Exactly. They think the FBI has just gotten too involved in political matters and that it needs to really refocus on its core mission, which is protecting the American people from criminals and terrorists.
Okay, so a lot of changes proposed for the Justice Department. What about the Department of Labor? What are they proposing there?
They call their approach to labor pro-worker, pro-family.
Pro-worker, pro-family.
But it's really focused on limiting the power of unions.
Unions,
and reforming the NLRB.
The NLRB.
The National Labor Relations Board to protect employers' rights.
Okay.
And they also want to eliminate the consideration of ESG.
ESG, okay.
Which is environmental, social, and governance factors.
Right.
From retirement savings.
Okay.
So it's pretty interesting.
Interesting. So they're basically arguing for a more free market approach to labor relations.
Right.
Less government intervention, more emphasis on individual choice.
Exactly. They think unions have gotten too powerful.
Okay.
And that they stifle economic growth and job creation. And they also think that ESG considerations are often driven by political agendas rather than sound financial principles.
Okay.
And that they can really harm the returns of retirement savers.
So a pretty significant shift in labor policy on the table.
Definitely. And it really reflects their broader belief in limited government and free markets as the best way to promote economic prosperity.
Now let's talk transportation.
Transportation.
What kind of changes are they proposing for that sector?
Well, they want a transportation system that's less regulated and more innovative.
Okay.
And they actually have some pretty radical ideas about how to achieve that.
Okay, give me an example.
So they want to either completely separate the FAA, from the Department of Transportation, or at least separate the Air Traffic Organization from the FAA. And they also want to completely restructure the FAA's funding to free it from these annual appropriations and essentially make it operate more like a business.
So they want to like streamline the bureaucracy and give the FAA more autonomy to like innovate and modernize.
Exactly. They think the current system is just way too bureaucratic and that it stifles innovation. They want to see the FAA like embrace new technologies.
Like what? What kind of new technology?
Like digital and remote towers. Which are already being used in Europe.
Interesting. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
A lot.
But there's still more to come.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This mandate for leadership is incredibly detailed and ambitious.
It is.
It's clear they've put a lot of thought into like how they would govern if given the opportunity.
Yes, and it really provides a valuable glimpse into the conservative movement's vision for the future of America. So, in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into their plans for Veterans Affairs. Trade policy. And perhaps the most controversial of all, their vision for the Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Can't wait.
All right, so we've unpacked a ton of proposals.
Yeah, we have.
From this mandate for leadership.
It's a lot.
But there's still more to explore.
More? Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah. Next up, Veterans Affairs.
It's Veterans Affairs.
How do they envision improving care for our veterans?
That's a big one.
Yeah. Their approach is it's really three-pronged.
Three-pronged,
So modernizing the VA healthcare system. Reducing those, notorious wait times.
Wait times, yeah.
And encouraging more collaboration with the private sector.
So giving veterans more choice in where they get their health care.
Yeah, that's a key part of it. They think that that the private sector can can play a really valuable role in supplementing the VA services. Especially in areas where where the VA might be stretched thin, or where veterans might prefer to seek care closer to home.
Yeah, I mean, giving veterans more options just seems like a win-win to me.
Makes sense.
Now, this document does not shy away from tackling trade either.
Oh, no.
And their stance on China is especially interesting.
It is, yeah. They don't mince words when it comes to China, calling China's economic practices economic aggression.
Economic aggression, wow.
Yeah, they're advocating for like a much tougher approach in trade negotiations, pushing back against what they see as, unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong stance.
Yeah.
And it seems to, reflect this growing sentiment, not just among conservatives, but, across the political spectrum, that China's economic rise is a serious challenge to the U.S.
Yeah, and they're not they're not just talking about like being tough on China.
Yeah.
They're also advocating for a return to what they call balanced trade.
Balanced trade,
which has been a long-standing concern for conservatives.
Right. So the idea that we shouldn't be importing way more than we're exporting.
Yeah.
Which they say, leads to job losses, economic decline.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that they even bring up the possibility of the U.S. rejoining the Trans-Pacific Partnership,
the TPP,
which President Trump withdrew from.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be a major policy reversal.
It would.
What's their reasoning for that?
Well, they see the TPP as a way to kind of counter China's growing influence in the Asia-Pacific region. So by strengthening economic ties with with other countries in the region, they think the U.S. can kind of create a more level playing field and push back against China's economic dominance.
So it's a more strategic approach to trade.
Right.
Using it as a tool to achieve geopolitical goals.
Exactly. Now get ready for this.
Okay, what is it?
Their stance on the Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve, okay.
Is shall we say spicy.
Spicy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I noticed that section was it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
They're not just talking about like tweaking a few policies,
No.
They're proposing some pretty radical changes.
Radical changes.
To the Fed.
Yeah, they are.
It's in there.
They are very critical of the Fed.
Okay.
Arguing that it's become too powerful, too unaccountable, and prone to making decisions that are driven by political considerations rather than sound economics.
So not a fan.
Not a fan. And they're not afraid to put some pretty controversial ideas on the table.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so they propose reforming the Fed's mandate.
Okay.
Potentially limiting its ability to manipulate interest rates.
Okay.
And control the money supply.
Wow.
And they even suggest exploring alternatives to the current central banking system.
Free banking.
Free banking.
Or,
where private banks issue their own currencies.
Okay.
Or a strict monetary rule.
Okay.
Like tying the dollar to gold.
Wow. Those are some pretty radical ideas.
They are radical.
I mean, I imagine those proposals would be met with a lot of resistance.
Oh yeah.
From economists and policymakers who think a strong central bank is like super important.
Oh, absolutely. It would be like a fundamental shift in how we think about monetary policy and the role of government in managing the economy.
Yeah.
Huge gamble with potentially far-reaching consequences.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure.
Now, finally, let's talk about their vision for the Small Business Administration.
The SBA, okay.
What role do they see
the
SBA playing in the economy?
Well, they see the SBA's main role as advocating for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And reducing, regulatory burdens that small businesses face.
Okay.
They argue that that the SBA should really focus on streamlining its programs, making it easier for small businesses to access capital and navigate the the regulatory landscape.
Right.
They also want to modernize the definition of small business.
Of small business.
To reflect the changing nature of the economy. Okay. And they also want to limit the agency's scope. Okay. Make sure that it's not, overstepping its bounds.
So basically they want a leaner, more efficient SBA that's focused on empowering entrepreneurs rather than like trying to micromanage small businesses.
Exactly. They think that small businesses are really the engine of economic growth and job creation. Yeah. And that the government should focus on creating an environment where they can thrive. Okay. Rather than trying to pick winners and losers.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Defense, Homeland Security, the EPA, education, energy, agriculture.
Agriculture, yeah.
The Justice Department, labor, transportation. Veterans Affairs.
Trade, the Federal Reserve, and the SBA.
The SBA.
Wow.
It's quite the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah.
This mandate for leadership document, it's incredibly ambitious.
It is.
And far-reaching. It lays out this, this comprehensive roadmap for how a conservative administration would govern. Okay. Touching on, almost every aspect of American life.
Yeah. It definitely gives us a lot to think about.
A lot to think about.
So in the final part of our deep dive, we'll kind of step back
and consider the bigger picture.
The bigger picture, yeah.
What are the potential implications of all these proposals?
Yeah.
What kind of impact could they have, on American society and the economy?
Big questions.
Stay tuned. All right, so we spent the last two parts of this deep dive really getting into the weeds of mandate for leadership. Exploring all these specific policy proposals.
Right.
But now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
What does it all mean? Like, if a president actually tried to implement this whole conservative vision, what would be the real-world consequences?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because it's one thing to, like, lay out a plan on paper.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to put it into action.
Right.
Think about their emphasis on executive power, for example.
Okay.
They talk about handcuffing the bureaucracy.
Right.
But could a president really just unilaterally
make all these changes?
Yeah. Wouldn't there be pushback from, like, Congress?
Oh, absolutely.
From the courts?
Yeah.
Even from the very bureaucracy they're trying to rein in.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
There would be a lot of potential roadblocks.
Yeah.
And even if a president could, like, overcome all those obstacles, you have to think about the impact on the people actually working in these agencies.
Right.
This document talks about defanging and defunding so-called woke culture warriors.
Yeah.
Which kind of implies a major shakeup of the federal workforce.
Yeah, that kind of language is bound to make some people nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, could it lead to, like, a brain drain in certain agencies?
Potentially.
Right?
Yeah,
or even, like, politicize the civil service, which has traditionally been seen as nonpartisan.
Those are definitely valid concerns. And then you have to think about the broader societal implications.
Right.
This document tackles
some really hot-button issues: education, immigration, social welfare programs, areas where changes could have a huge impact on people's lives.
For example, they're really big on school choice.
Yeah.
Which, sounds good in theory. But could it actually, like, widen the gap between wealthy and disadvantaged school districts?
That's a key question.
Yeah.
And their proposals on immigration enforcement, while popular with some, could also lead to, like, unintended consequences.
Okay.
Like families being separated or businesses struggling to find workers. It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
With no easy answers.
And then there's their vision for the Federal Reserve.
Oh, the Fed.
Which, let's be honest, is pretty radical.
It's radical.
I mean, limiting the Fed's power, exploring things like free banking. That's a huge departure.
It is.
From how we've done things for decades.
Yeah, and economists are really divided on whether such drastic changes would actually lead to, greater economic stability. Or just create more chaos.
Yeah.
Imagine if, like, private banks were suddenly issuing their own currencies.
Wow.
Would it be like the Wild West of finance?
Right.
Or a new era of innovation and prosperity?
It's almost impossible to predict, right?
Almost impossible.
There are so many like ripple effects to consider.
So many.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this mandate for leadership document so fascinating, but also a bit daunting. It raises all these, these fundamental questions about the role of government, the balance of power, and the kind of society we want to live in.
So it's not just a blueprint for policy changes. It's like a catalyst for this much broader conversation about the future of America.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether you, agree with their specific proposals, this document forces you to grapple with some really important issues. It's a challenge to think critically, to weigh the potential costs and benefits of different approaches, and to decide what kind of future we want to create for ourselves and for generations to come.
So to our listener, we've given you a deep dive into this Mandate for Leadership document.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you to decide what you think.
Exactly.
Do these proposals resonate with you? Do they raise concerns? This is more than just like a political debate. It's about shaping the direction of our country.
It really is.
So get informed and engage in the conversation.
Absolutely.
And let your voice be heard